The Vorrkai collective had a saying. It translated, more or less, to this: if you want something dead, send a Vorrkai. And honestly, for about 6,000 years of galactic history, that saying held up beautifully. No exceptions. No asterisks. No footnotes. Just cold, brutal, irrefutable fact. Until, of course, the footnote showed up on its own. Wearing boots. Eating a sandwich. My name is Grex, and I am a historian. Not a soldier. Not a strategist. Not a being with any reasonable desire to be standing on a Vorrkai warship when it encountered its first human. And yet, here I was, standing on a Vorrkai warship when it encountered its first human. The universe, in my professional experience, has always had a tremendous sense of humor. It just never bothers to laugh with you. Let me provide some context, because context is the difference between a story and a suicide note. The Vorrkai were, by every measurable standard, terrifying. 7 feet of dense muscle wrapped in bioluminescent plates that shifted color depending on their mood. Red meant hunting. Blue meant boredom. Orange meant amusement. They had 4 arms, 2 of which ended in hands designed for precise work, and 2 of which ended in something that could only be described as arguments you could not win. They had been the apex predators of their home world for so long that evolution had basically run out of challengers and started recycling. Their entire civilization, their art, their culture, their religion, was structured around the singular concept of the hunt. Even their architects designed buildings that looked like they were about to chase you. When the Vorrkai expanded into the stars, the rest of the galaxy had 2 options. Surrender or become a historical footnote. Most chose the former. The ones who chose the latter are indeed footnotes now. Very short ones. The Vorrkai collective covered 32 star systems. They had standing treaties with 9 major species, all of whom had agreed to those treaties with great enthusiasm right around the time Vorrkai warships appeared in their orbit. Their military was not the largest in the galaxy. It did not need to be. A single Vorrkai hunting pack, which consisted of 12 warriors, had once pacified an entire moon that had been in rebellion for 40 years. The operation took 11 days. 9 of those days were travel time. So when the collective received its first transmission from a small, warm, suspiciously moist planet in the outer spiral arm, the response was not concern. The response was something close to the Vorrkai equivalent of smiling. Which looked, I should note, absolutely nothing like smiling. The transmission was audio and video. The being on the screen was small. Soft-looking. No visible armor plating. No redundant organs that one could see. 2 arms. 2 legs. A face arranged in an expression that the Vorrkai's translation matrix identified as polite but not overly interested. The being introduced itself as Commander Bayo Eze, of the Terran Expeditionary Diplomatic Corps. It said the word diplomatic with the particular tone of someone who had been in enough situations where diplomacy had not worked that they had developed a slight personal relationship with the word. "We've detected your vessels entering our mapped survey zone," Commander Eze said. "We'd like to talk." The Vorrkai commander, a hulking, red-shifted veteran named Skora the Unmatched, leaned back in her command chair and let out a low, resonant sound. Her plates flushed a deep, rich orange. Amusement. Pure, uncomplicated amusement. I was standing 3 rows behind her at the time, cataloging the encounter for the historical archive, and I wrote in my notes, "Initial Vorrkai assessment of humanity, politely translated, adorable." I then added, "This is probably a mistake." I was correct. I am often correct at the worst possible times. Skora replied. Her response, translated into the language the humans were using, was approximately this: "Small creature. You stand in the path of the collective. You have 2 options." Bayo Eze nodded. He had the look of a being who had been given 2 options before and had found a third one hiding behind the furniture. I appreciate the efficiency, he said. Can I ask one question first? Skora's plates went briefly, curiously, to the pale flicker of genuine interest. Nobody asked questions. Nobody had ever asked questions. You either surrendered or you ran. You did not ask questions. Ask, she said. Commander Eze folded his hands together on the desk in front of him. He glanced briefly off to the side, at someone outside the camera's view, with a look that I later learned to recognize as a human expression meaning, "Can you believe this is actually happening right now?" Then he looked back at the screen and said, very calmly, "How many of you have there ever been?" Skora blinked. All four of her eyes. Which, for a Vorrkai, was the equivalent of a full stop. "What kind of question is that?" she said. "An important one," said Commander Eze. "I'll explain in a minute. But I want you to have that number in your head. How many Vorrkai warriors have existed in your entire recorded history? Every hunt. Every campaign. Every battle. Total number. Nobody moved on the bridge. Not one soldier. Not one officer." I stopped writing. Even the ship, somehow, felt like it had paused. Skora answered. It was a large number. It was an impressive number. It was the kind of number that had won 32 star systems and made 9 species sign treaties with great enthusiasm. Bayo Eze nodded slowly. "Okay," he said. "And you hunt in packs of 12, yes? And a pack pacified one of our allied moons recently. 11 days. We heard about that." Skora's plates flushed orange again. Of course they did. It was an excellent story. "Now," said Commander Eze, "I want you to understand something, and I want you to understand it very clearly, because what I am about to tell you is not a threat. It is just a fact. And facts are stubborn things." He paused. Just long enough to let the silence do its work. "We have 8 billion people on one planet," he said. "And about half of them think joining the military sounds like a fun idea." The orange on Skora's plates did not disappear. But for the first time in my career studying apex predators across a dozen civilizations, I watched the orange begin, very quietly, to consider whether it had made a terrible mistake. There is a specific kind of silence that falls over a room when something that was funny stops being funny. It has a texture to it. A weight. Like the air itself has decided to take a moment and think about its life choices. That silence fell over the bridge of Skora's warship like a very heavy blanket made of pure, undiluted oh no. Skora stared at the screen for 4 full seconds. For a Vorrkai, 4 seconds of stillness was roughly the emotional equivalent of a lesser species curling into a ball on the floor and whispering quietly to itself. Her plates cycled. Orange. Then a confused, muddy yellow. Then back toward orange. Then somewhere between the two, which was a color the translation matrix flagged as, no recorded meaning. Possibly unprecedented. I wrote in my notes, the Vorrkai are experiencing something new. Then I underlined it. Then I wrote underneath, they do not appear to enjoy it. Commander Bayo Eze, to his considerable credit, did not gloat. He did not smirk. He did not lean forward with the theatrical energy of someone who had been waiting his whole career for this exact moment. He simply sat there, hands still folded, with the calm expression of a being who had already done the math and was now just waiting for everyone else to catch up. 4 billion soldiers, Skora said finally. Her voice had gone very flat. Flat was bad. Flat meant the amusement had left the building and something much more serious had moved in and started rearranging the furniture. "Give or take," said Eze. "We do not actually make all of them soldiers at once. We have found, historically, that this causes logistical problems. Supply chain issues, mostly. Also parking." One of the junior officers behind Skora made a sound. It was quickly suppressed. I did not suppress mine quickly enough and received a look from the weapons officer to my left that communicated, without words, that my continued presence on the bridge was conditional on my immediate silence. "You are attempting to intimidate the collective," Scora said. "I am attempting to have a conversation," said Eze. "There is a difference. Intimidation implies I need you afraid. I just need you informed." Scora stood up. All 7 feet of her plates burning a slow, deep red now, the color of a predator who has decided the time for talking is approaching its natural end. She was, by any objective measure, one of the most physically imposing beings I had ever shared a pressurized space with. She had 17 confirmed solo hunt kills. She had taken a wound to her second left arm on the moon operation and finished the campaign anyway. She was the kind of commander that other commanders quietly mentioned when they were trying to explain to new recruits what the ceiling of achievement actually looked like. She looked at Bayo Eze on that screen, and she said, "We have hunted species that breathe fire. We have pacified civilizations that fielded war machines the size of your cities. We are the Vorrkai. We do not negotiate with soft bodies." There it was. Soft bodies. The Vorrkai term for species without significant natural armor. It was not, technically, an insult. It was more of a classification. Like calling something small. Purely descriptive. Eze tilted his head slightly. He glanced off-screen again. Then he looked back. "I want to show you something," he said. "I am going to share a file with your vessel's communication array. I would like you to look at it before you make any decisions. It will take about 90 seconds of your time." Scora's eyes narrowed. All 4 of them, independently, which was something Vorrkai could do and which I had never stopped finding unsettling. "Why?" she said. It was not a question. It was a wall. "Because I have read your history," said Eze, "and I respect it. I genuinely do. 32 systems. 6,000 years of expansion. That is not nothing. That is extraordinary, actually. And I would very much prefer that 6,000 years of extraordinary history does not end in a file that future historians title something embarrassing." Scora did not move. But she did not disconnect the channel either. Which was, in the language of Vorrkai body posture, tantamount to saying, "Fine. Talk. But talk fast." The file transferred. It opened on the bridge's central display. It was a record. A military record, specifically, cataloging a conflict that humanity had engaged in approximately 200 years prior against a species called the Drenic, who had, at the time, occupied 14 star systems, possessed significantly more advanced weapons technology than humanity, and had made the decision to attack a human colony on the grounds that the colony was situated on a planet the Drenic considered spiritually significant. Which was, in hindsight, a profoundly unfortunate reason to start a war with human beings. The conflict lasted 9 years. The Drenic currently occupied 0-star systems. Scora read the file. Then she read it again. Then she stood very still for a long time with her plates cycling through colors I had never seen before and did not have names for. "They had better ships," she said quietly. "Yes," said Eze. "Better weapons. At the start, yes. More warriors. At the start." Scora turned away from the screen. She walked 3 steps toward the viewport and stood looking out at the stars. Her second set of arms, the large ones, folded behind her back in a posture I recognized from my research as the Vorrkai gesture for deep, private, serious thought. The kind of thinking that happens when a hunter realizes, mid-stride, that the ground they are standing on is not ground at all. "What do you want?" she said. "Not to the screen. To the stars." "An agreement," said Eze. "A border. A handshake, metaphorically speaking, because I understand your species does not shake hands and I have read the medical reports on what happens when humans try." A long silence. You came to this meeting, Skora said slowly, without weapons visible. Without a fleet behind you. With one ship. Yes. That is either very confident or very stupid. Commander Skora, said Eze, and for the first time there was something in his voice that was not quite warmth and not quite amusement, but something that lived right between the two, like a fire banked low but absolutely still burning. In our history, those two things have very rarely been different. Skora turned back around. Her plate settled. Slowly. Gradually. Into a color I had never seen on a Vorrkai before. It was not red. It was not orange. It was not the pale flicker of interest or the flat tone of threat. It was something close to blue. But warmer. Somewhere in the territory of, I have reconsidered my position and I am not going to say that out loud, but my body is apparently announcing it for me. One meeting, she said. Neutral station. 3 delegates each. That works, said Eze. And if I find your terms unsatisfactory? Eze nodded slowly. Then we will have a problem. But I think you will find them satisfactory. Because the Vorrkai are smart. And smart hunters, he said, know when something is not prey. The channel closed. The bridge stayed silent for a long moment. Then Skora looked at her weapons officer, then her navigation officer, then finally at me, the historian standing 3 rows back with a recording device and the expression of someone who had just watched something he would spend the rest of his career trying to describe accurately. Write that down, she said. I already did, I said. She made a sound. Low. Resonant. And I realized, with a start, that I had never heard a Vorrkai laugh before. Not really. Not the genuine kind. The kind that comes out when something is not funny, exactly, but is so far outside the map of everything you have ever known that laughing is simply the only reasonable response left. She laughed for a long time. Then she ordered the fleet to hold position, called her navigators to plot a course to the nearest neutral station, and said, to no one in particular, soft bodies. She shook her head. Soft bodies. Friends, if you are enjoying our videos and want to watch new and exciting sci-fi and HFY stories every day, then don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Also, make sure to turn on the bell icon so you never miss any of our latest uploads. Like the video and share it with your friends as well, so our community can continue to grow and bring you even more amazing content.